Hello, everybody. Welcome to yet another Just Gaming Tingz Podcast episode. Welcome on in. If this is your first episode, if this is your 21st episode, all of you are welcome, and we're all happy to have you here. This is a podcast in which we all bring an all-queer perspective on video games, gaming news, nerdy stuff every Saturday, live on twitch.tv/justgamingtings at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And, later on YouTube and your favorite podcast services. I'm one of your hosts, Project Ruby, pronouns he, they. And today we have four wonderful people that you can listen and watch on today's podcast. So let's do some intros. We have, of course, Koga Jangles with us. Hi.
Hello, pronouns he, him. Doing all right today.
Yes, hope you had a good week. Very eventful week for gaming.
Very. That's one way to put it.
That's one way to put it. Of course, we have another one of our hosts, Spin Blend. Hello.
Hi. I use he, him pronouns. Just so much happened this week. I have a lot of feelings, but I'll save that for the rest of the podcast.
Yeah, we'll get to it. We'll get to it. And of course, we have today's first special guest, our special guest within 21 episodes, and this is our first guest. We should have done it sooner. What are we doing? But yes, our very first guest, Kylan Coates, the creative director of Crispy Creative. So why don't you introduce yourself for the wonderful people watching and listening to the podcast?
Hey everybody, my name's Kylan. Like that wonderful intro said, I'm the creative director and founder of the indie studio Crispy Creative. We're working on our first game, a narrative management space opera that is very queer, and it's called A Long Journey to an Uncertain End. You can check it out on Kickstarter, and I will talk so much more about it later on in the podcast. But yeah, happy to be here. Pronouns he, him.
Hell yeah. We love a queer-centric game, of course. And, of course, for those of you watching live on our Twitch channel, you'll get to ask us questions. You can also see the Kickstarter link in the chat. It will obviously as well be on the YouTube description, all of the descriptions. There's so many descriptions to fill out. Good thing half of it is automatic. It's fine. It's great. But yes, we'll get into the interview in the latter half of the podcast. So for the first half, like we said, a lot happened this week in the gaming world. So let's talk about it. So me and Spin actually did a reaction. It's on our YouTube channel, and we reacted to the PlayStation State of Play. So that's the first thing that we're gonna tackle. So yeah, take it away, Spin.
Yeah, this Thursday was the PlayStation State of Play. I feel like Sony was just like, oh, there was a Nintendo Direct last week. Let's put our own spin on this. Let's throw our own hat in the ring.
Right. We also have something to say.
Right. It's about a half an hour of announcements. Lots of new games coming up, updates to games. So we're each gonna pick a personal highlight, and discuss it amongst ourselves.
Yeah, for time, purposes, we can't just talk about everything, because it's like not everything is also noteworthy for all of us. So we might as well just pick out our faves and just kind of talk about it.
Right. There's some times where, like, if we try to talk about everything, we'll just be like, oh, that sure was a game. Uh-huh. Yeah.
And then we just have a 2-hour podcast, and it's just us being like, well, I don't think I'm going to play it, but, it looks cute.
Yeah. Or like none of us know like anything about it. We're like, let's talk about this.
Right.
So yeah, we're just going to kind of go through the highlights. But if y'all do want to see our like full live reactions, me and Ruby have that clip up on the Just Gaming Tingz YouTube channel.
Yeah. It was fun doing those.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely want to do more of those in the future. Like when at least a couple of us are available to to react to stuff. But let me go ahead and get into like my personal like
Yes.
thing that I saw, and I was just like, all right. The Absolver developer Slowclap reveals Sifu for PS4 and PS5. Okay, this is like the first like teaser of this game, and immediately when I saw it, I was like, "Ooh, this art style's cool. Ooh, this like this fighting's cool." Like,
Yeah.
I'm a big like action movie fan, and I love a hallway fight. And the first like scene in that trailer was a hallway fight, and I was just like, I'm here for it instantly.
Yes.
We didn't really get like a whole lot of information about the story, but I'm excited to like learn more in future like trailers, future updates. And I'm excited that
Yeah.
it's coming out for both PS4 and PS5 because I don't have a PS5 yet. I don't
Yeah.
have one yet.
Listen, we're in a pandemic. Budgets, it's fine.
But yeah, like I feel like a lot of the other announcements, I was like, oh, this would be great if I had a PS5. But like this one, I was like, I could actually play this game.
Yes.
And it looks so cool.
It does look really cool. Like I remember it kind of alluded to it being like a roguelike of sorts, because it's the idea from the trailer. It seems as though every time the character dies, they age a few years. So I think it's supposed to have, I don't know if it's them putting a twist on the concept of like experience and how you gain experience with age and stuff like that. So I thought it was really interesting. I'm usually not a fan of dying over and over again, but hopefully it will be interesting, and it will be we've seen ways in which games can do that in interesting and captivating ways. Hades obviously being a huge example of that. Yeah, I'm intrigued. I always love a little like surprising moment like that where you're like, ooh, okay, didn't think we were gonna get this today, and I love that. If I was to choose like a personal like highlight, I'm not gonna lie, Final Fantasy VII Remake has me under their, chokehold. I love it so far. I've been enjoying it thoroughly. And there were so many Final Fantasy VII related news, like after the state of play as well. So to quickly break it down, they basically announced a PlayStation 5 upgrade, like update version with better, like not better graphics, but updates to the graphics, updates to the gameplay, frame rates and all that. And then they dropped a bomb, which was a Yuffie DLC that is PS5 exclusive. So I thought that was really interesting, and I thought I could bring that into the conversation because a lot of people have very mixed opinions on this, because some people are excited that the upgrade is free, but the DLC they're not so excited that the DLC is PS5 exclusive, even though the game came out on PS4 originally. And to even add to that, what does that mean for the exclusivity deal? Does that mean that people on PC are going to have to wait another year for Final Fantasy VII Remake to come out? Like, was this the sign of a renewal? Like, what do you think, Koga? Because I know you were waiting on PC.
Yes, I've been waiting patiently on PC. I've been voting almost as much footage of this as I could.
It's so hard.
It kind of is, but like it is like, I guess it depends on what else everyone's doing. It's just that unfortunately, when some people are like streaming it that I want to watch, you just kind of can't because you don't want to get it spoiled or anything like that. I can understand why people are upset about the DLC not coming to the PS4 version, because again, not a lot of people can get a PlayStation 5 right now.
Yeah.
So it's like you want to play the new content and you just can't. And some people can afford it. It's just that you either have to wait, babysit the internet, and just hope you get it like right when it's on sale, or buy it off of scalpers. And I don't think either console is worth that.
Right.
I was hoping that it's coming to PC soon because I've been waiting. And this update kind of, I guess for me, it kind of gave me like an idea of how how to look when it come over, because I did like the enhancements. 60 frames per second. Y'all know how I am about frame rates.
Yeah.
So for me, I am definitely looking forward to it, and I would just, like I say, hope it comes to the PlayStation. I mean, comes to PC soon. But I do think it might have been a little bit of a misstep to not have the DLC available for PlayStation 4. A little bit.
Yeah, I was not sure what their angle was. I mean, obviously the angle was that Sony paid them a bunch and they're like, "Oh yeah, we can help you sell more consoles, of course, as long as you pay us for another year. That should be great." But I mean, obviously, Kylan, you as a dev, you've worked in multiple projects before your current project. So does stuff like this impact how decisions are made within the development of a game? Like publishers, outside sources, and other people coming in and saying, hey, this thing is going to be locked to that platform or this place or whatever it is.
Absolutely. And I mean, unfortunately, most of the time it's completely outside of the developer's hands. It rests with whatever the publishing, whatever publisher you're working with, marketing people, higher ups. It's really unfortunate because devs, like developers, play games, and they like seeing that exclusivity. I'm like, oh, like, man, that would. Of course, you want your game to be played by as many people as possible. But yeah, that would be decisions like that are normally outside of the developer's hands. And also, unfortunately, normally the developers are the first ones to hear about fans' reactions to it. We're like, we can't do anything. Sorry. But yeah, it sucks. People got to make money somehow. Some ways are, devs probably wouldn't decide. But yeah, it's an unfortunate thing. But it does look really cool. The DLC does look really cool. The PS5. It's difficult to get a hold of. I don't have one. I still have my good old PS4.
Same here. I love her. She howls a lot. she starts howling at the most recent stuff. I'm like, ooh, you're on your last legs, sweetie, but she's still going. I also saw like something recently where it was very interesting because I never really thought about it like that. Because with these like state of plays and Nintendo Directs and all of that stuff, people are usually upset and, like you said, usually at the developers, and they're like, why do you announce things so early? Why do you do things like why do you hype up stuff so much? And I actually saw a video recently from Alana Pierce, and she actually talked about how these conferences and these presentations are technically not for the consumers. This is technically for like the shareholders, for people, for the investors, for them to be like, oh, interesting, you're working on things that people are excited about, and people are pre-ordering, and you're making money off of this. How interesting. Let me invest in your company. So yeah, people just need to be aware that it's the developers are just working on the game, and they're just as excited as you are to get the game out there, and it's usually not their fault if you see any questionable things happening with the games, especially with marketing and like all of that. But yeah, Koga, what would be one of your highlights from the State of Play?
So for me, it would have been Five Nights at Freddy's Security Breach.
Nope.
But they showed a bit of like, what do you mean no? What do you mean no?
As soon as this came up, I was like, Koga's gonna be excited about this. We were scaredy babies.
Terrified.
Koga's gonna be excited about this.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
One of these days, we're gonna get a VR and put it on your head so you can play the VR versions of these games. And
nope. Okay, maybe for charity.
No, okay.
Maybe for charity.
But I was happy to see this because we haven't seen like any type of gameplay at all. We just saw like teaser trailers and things like that. Normally these games are kind of like mini game-ish in a way, depending on the game. So this one seemed like it's going to be more than that. I'm not exactly sure the story. The stories of these games are usually vague, and you find them out during gameplay. Then you have, the theorists, which honestly, it's honestly one of the I think is the best parts of these games is like the community and how they try to piece things together and things like that. So I'm definitely looking forward to that. It's also coming to PC as well. I don't think it's coming to Xbox. It's just I think it's PS4, PS5, and PC. So I definitely be wanting to get that and try it out because I really do like these games. Not enough to go on like the hardest difficulties like I've seen people do. That's madness.
Oh no, absolutely
But
not.
I've definitely been looking forward to this one, and it's nice to see an idea of how it'll look, in engine and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. It's not probably. It's definitely their best looking game.
Yeah, for sure.
Still terrifying. Yeah. Would I do it for charity? Maybe. It would have to be like a big goal. It would like listen. I hate horror games. No, no, no,
I
no, no,
love
no.
them.
So Kylan, did you get to see the state of play? And if so, did you have any particular highlights that you wanted to bring up?
I did not see it. One of the sort of paradoxes of the more that you work in games, the less you kind of see everything else or even get to
Yeah.
play games. So with our Kickstarter going, I have been just like head down every day, all day, trying to get the word out about our game. So I didn't get to catch it. I did see one of the highlights was Kina Bridge of Spirits, um,
Yes.
which we Crispy Creative actually did a tiny bit of UI work on that game, and I know a few of the developers. It's a really really beautiful game. Uh,
Yeah.
they actually are the game champions. Some things that I know our own studio is pushing, is working for in terms of accessibility, just like general, just a lot of really good themes about it. So that when I saw that just listing on there, I was like, yes, like that is a really cool game. It's really really beautiful. I know a lot of hard work has gone into it. So hope people will check it out. It's a really really cool game.
Yeah, we were so hyped for it. We thought it was so adorable and so exciting, especially like a female-led game as well. Like they're not super common, so it was super cool to see the game get such a big spotlight. And it's not even the first time that they've showed it, so I'm glad that they're giving it so much of a spotlight and so much love and attention. Which is awesome. I was actually going to ask you, so I'm glad you did cover that. Like when you are a dev, you're probably not like, hey, let me watch all the gaming related announcements about
Right.
what everyone else is doing. I'm busy doing my own things.
I mean, yeah, you have to be aware of what's going on, to some degree. You
Yeah,
can't totally like stick your head in a hole. Um, but there is, I mean, the gaming industry, so much cool stuff is going on. So many people are making really amazing things. That it's at different points of development. Sometimes you're like, okay, everybody's making cool stuff. That's great. Let me just try to make my one little cool thing, and then I can
right.
share with everybody else. Um, but yeah, there's so much cool stuff going on. It's really exciting. It's really cool to see. Yeah, I wish time is always my enemy. I wish I had more time
Oh my god.
to do all the things.
Right. That ever growing backlog. It's never it just keeps piling on and at some point you either address it or you just accept the fact that it's always going to be there haunting you. But yeah, there were also some. So of course, in this ever back and forth between Nintendo and Sony, apparently, Pokemon was like, "Hey, next tomorrow, literally the day after Sony's presentation, we also have a thing with Pokemon. So yay!" And yeah, I mean, they announced the people have been wanting this game for so long. The Diamond and Pearl remakes. They announced a new game set in that universe called Pokemon Legends. Arceus. I don't. Ooh, names. And then of course.
Arceus.
Okay. Yes. Thanks. And then of course they showed more Pokemon Snap gameplay footage. I was personally excited about the Diamond and Pearl remakes, not because I played the originals and I wanted to replay them, but because I haven't really played them. So for me, I always get excited when like an older thing. It's weird calling Diamond and Pearl older, but that's where we are.
50 years old.
It's been about 14 years.
Right? Yeah. Oof. But yeah, I'm excited to get to experience some of the things that I may have missed, and getting to see it in a different way. So that's really cool. Pokemon Legends also looks interesting. They're basically responding to all the requests of, oh, you wanted a Gen 4 remake? Cool. Oh, you wanted an open world Pokemon? Okay, cool. We got you. So I just hope that the games turn out as good as most people want to, which is impossible to please everybody, as we probably saw on social media. But super exciting stuff. What about you, Spin? What were you excited the most for? If it's possible to pick.
Y'all know I've been coming on this podcast literally, and every single time we mention Nintendo, I'm like, where's my Gen 4 remake? Where's my Gen 4 remake? And okay, my body knew that this was happening because I burst out of bed at literally 10 a.m. on the dot to watch this.
That's amazing.
Just without an alarm, just naturally woke up, just like my Gen 4 remake senses. And lo and behold, there was Gen 4 remake. I screamed so loud. I was so excited about this. And like when I saw some of the reactions on social media to this, I was just like really perplexed because like literally everybody's been just like, give us Gen 4 remake, give us Gen 4 remake. And then when they're giving us Gen 4 remake, people are going to complain about the art style, which I thought was really neat. Like,
yeah.
it's like, oh, this is what you wanted. Like, why are you gonna, what?
Oh, yeah.
I think it's adorable. I think the little chibi characters are adorable. Like, it's literally a 3D version of that art style from the original games.
Yeah.
So I was just kind of like scrolling through Twitter and I was like, what are y'all talking about? It looks cute. Like,
yeah, gamers are amazing at saying we want this, but then saying, oh, not like that.
Right?
It's such a thing. Oof. But yeah, how from, of course, the dev perspective, Kylan, how do y'all deal with like the input from players and social media and stuff like that? Because it's impossible to please everybody, right? And there's some things that at some point of development you're like, we're not going to redo the entire art of the game, or like, oh no, we're not going to redo this thing or that thing, because that's just impossible. So how do you kind of manage that feedback?
It's a great question. That's what community managers are for, oftentimes, is to be a bit of a filter between the devs and the fans. When fans are when they're making suggestions, when they're giving feedback, like that's a positive thing because it means they're engaged with the game, that they're excited, they're like thinking of all these other things that could happen in the game, and that's really excited. That's really cool to hear from a developer perspective, because you're like, oh, people are into it, they're getting it, they want to see more. I mean, in the same way that people can, there's a difference between enjoying games and creating them. In the same way, there's a difference between enjoying film and creating film, TV shows. I mean, heck, like creating meals at restaurants.
Right.
You can have this super delicious meal, and then if you want to critique the chef on it, it's like, okay, well, it actually takes a lot more than you think to make this.
Right.
And some things that might seem easy, for someone who's gone through the process, you can see the realities, difficulties of making changes. So, I mean, it's exciting to hear from fans. If the feedback is just like, this is all crap, like, you're like,
right,
okay, whatever. That person was probably having a bad day. Like, most often, like when it's just like blanket, unconstructive things like that, a lot of times it's not about your game. Like it's about that something else is going on in their life. They're just venting or saying something else. Um, for things that are more constructive, or like, hey, like this looks really cool. What about, a feature like this? Or, what if you tweak something there? A lot of times devs do look at that. Like we evaluate, like that's actually kind of cool. What would it look like? And then we look at our budgets and we're like, oh no, like no. Like that's
Right.
maybe for the sequel, maybe for DLC or something. We all are unfortunately constrained by space and time and money.
Yeah.
So at some point we got to get games out. Uh, but yeah, I mean, it's exciting to hear from fans. Kind of the worst thing is to release something and then you just hear crickets and nobody says anything. Um, so this is exciting to hear from fans. But yeah, like we hear from stuff. Try to make the best decisions that we can. We're just people,
Right.
and then just kind of go on. Sometimes it's like, look, you gotta tell fans this game probably just isn't for you.
Yeah.
Just this time. Um, there's a lot of cool stuff out there. The specific thing that you're making, like our game is super inclusive. If somebody is triggered by the existence of pronouns, we're like, this game
Right.
probably isn't for you. Like that's okay. There's plenty of other things to play. Um, but in our game, pronouns exist. Like that's a thing. Yeah.
Right? Imagine that.
So, yeah.
Yeah, people, yeah, it's that could be a whole complete discussion about people not understanding that not everything is catered to them, and their personal needs and wants. But yeah, what about you, Koga? Did you get a chance to see the Pokemon presents?
I got to see it when I got off work because everything happens while I'm at work.
I know.
It's unfortunate. So I was happy to hear about the remakes of Diamond and Pearl. Was it Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl? I believe what the names were. That was, I think, was like the last one that I played before I kind of had a bit of a falling off because Black and White just wasn't for me. So if I had a Switch, I do need to get another Switch. I would be picking this up. I'm definitely interested in that. I can kind of understand why some were upset about the art style. If you're coming from Sword and Shield to that, I can understand. But I don't think it's worth getting like that upset about. And I hope the community handles it a lot better than they did about the National Dex thing, and not go after the devs and things like that. But I by looking at it, I can understand like, okay, I get how that's just not for some people, and but as we said earlier, just not everything is going to be for everyone. So if it bothers you that much, then maybe just don't play it. Feedback is fine, but you got to make sure you got to be constructive criticism, not just it sucks and then I'm gonna go run off and then scream on Twitter. That's not gonna help anybody.
Right.
The open world Pokemon Legends Arceus, that looked interesting because I don't think they've done something like that before, to where like I had to like watch it again, but I saw like you just threw the ball and you can like catch them, and I'm like, so is it like actual fighting, or is I'm still having to press commands? So I'm very interested in seeing on how that turns out. It looks very bit different. And then we have the new Pokemon Snap, which I still want to get. Well, when I get a Switch, I do want to get that. I did play the original that was back in '99, and I just liked how it was, a little bit, different, for the most part, relaxed, until you were trying to like get them to react a certain way so you could go to another area or something. But it was just, running around taking some pictures of them doing whatever they were doing, and I'm glad to see that back as well. So I honestly did enjoy watching their presentation for it. I think it overall was good. It gave people, for the most part, what it is they wanted and then some.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, that's basically all that happened this week. It doesn't seem like a lot because we didn't talk about every single thing for your own sake. For just so that you don't have to listen to like a 3-hour podcast. We're not talking about every single thing that took place, but we are super excited to talk to you, Kylan, about your game, of course. I actually I have a question that has to do with like, how did Crispy Creative even come about? Because obviously you've worked on other projects, various types of A's, if you will. And so, what led you to found your own studio?
So this is a great question. So the dream has kind of always been to start my own studio at some point. Back when I mean, gosh, like back when I was a QA tester in college, and it's everything, all of my work experience. It's always been framed as, okay, this is showing me what I need to do um, when I create my own studio. What do I need to do? What is the perspective from people at different levels to run a well studio, to run a studio well? Uh, so that's it's always been the dream. Um, as far as like Crispy Creative starting when it did, I had been so the last studio that I worked at full time was Obsidian Entertainment. Worked on a couple games for them. Outer Worlds is probably the biggest one people know, and I've mainly worked in the UI, the UX UI space. UX stands for user experience. UI stands for user interface. So designed the UI for Outer Worlds and for a bunch of different games. It kind of got to a point where I was like, I've talked about this for a while of starting my own studio. Um, my husband brought up like, yeah, you have been talking about it for a while. Like, when is it going to happen? Um, and that was a bit of the like, let's give it a shot. So for the first year of Crispy Creative, we were uh, just a UX UI sort of creative agency. So we would work with not only different developers on their games, and that would be like Kena Bridge of Spirits, but also for smaller indie games, for mobile games. But we also did stuff like rebranding for companies. We would do UX reviews of games before they were released, just to kind of give to the dev team. Um, we did a redesign of like a some mobile apps. One was like a nutrition fitness app, which was just kind of fun because it was just really different than making games. During that time, the first year was like, can we keep the lights on? Like, is there
Right.
is there enough work to keep us going and keep us independent? Um, and it there was. We actually were turning down work, which was like gave me so much anxiety because I was like, no, like we
Right.
need to take everything we get. It was like we just didn't have time. We didn't have the manpower and the developers and the time to do it. Um, During that time, we were kind of building up a bit of a I don't say a war chest, but like a development fund. And we were prototyping and doing market research for what type of game um, would be our first title. Uh, Starting a studio, the goal being fully independent so that we could create the types of games that we wanted to. Those are games that are accessible, that have a focus on well-being, not only well-being for the developer, but for the players. When we say well-being, not just physical, but mental well-being, um, focus on inclusivity, and then just trying to push the medium forward, trying to push the game industry forward in some small way. You know, uh, don't necessarily have to invent a new genre, but pushing it forward in some small way. Um, so with that, after a year, we it seemed like there was a market for an accessible, narrative focused resource management game in the sci-fi space. And that was the start of a long journey to an uncertain end.
Yes. And
So
just random question, because you did mention that you started in college doing QA testing. Do you happen to remember the first game you worked on with that? Like the first game that you tested, you were like, "Ooh, this needs work."
I do. I do actually. It was a Crash Bandicoot game. It was Crash Tag Team Racing for
Ooh.
the GameCube. I'm dating myself a little bit. I feel like my
Okay.
beard is like, as I say that, my beard grows long and gray and like,
Oh
you know,
yeah.
Indiana Jones. I just like my skin melts off as I
Right.
age. But yeah, no, I distinctly remember Crash Tag Team Racing. And then the other game, it was a game called Time Shift. Um,
Ooh, that does sound
there's no
familiar.
reason you should have heard of it. If you have, amazing. Like there was a lot of fun on it, but there's no reason you should have heard of it. It did do some really interesting things. It was a first person shooter, and you would have these. You messed with time, um, but multiplayer was cool because you would drop these time grenades, uh, and you could drop like a reverse time grenade. So somebody would shoot a missile at you, you threw a reverse time grenade, the missile would go back at them. It was actually really fun.
Oh, that's interesting.
But yeah, anyways, long, long, long time ago.
Yeah.
Um,
So I was just curious, you know. I just hear random things and I'm like, ooh, let me hold on to that and ask a question about
Yeah.
it. For people who are not really aware of how game production works, right? And they're probably some of our listeners only really play video games if they're not really aware of how it actually works. So what exactly is the role of a creative director in a video game? Which is your role?
um, exactly. It's a good question. So the creative director is it does change depending on the studio. But generally, the creative director, you are in charge of the creative vision of the game. Um, to give a visual, essentially you have to keep all the plates spinning for everybody. So for our team, even though we have a small team, we still have our narrative, our narrative department. I don't want to say department. That sounds too big. Our narrative team is 4 people, and they're all working together to create all these amazing stories in the game. That said, they need creative direction for, okay, sci-fi space opera game that could go in a lot of different directions. So what is the universe that we're creating? What are the sort of boundaries, creative boundaries around that they can work within? And as a creative director, you have to define those. So while you do have a lot of creative freedom, you do have to be very specific in the creative direction and be able to sort of back up why does this make sense? Why are we doing it this way? Um, I could go into like a long spiel for the creative direction for Long Journey. Why it was a space opera, just because I think space operas are inherently queer spaces in general. And I also just like really big, beautiful, vibrant colors. But that's essentially you define the creative division, the creative vision. You do a lot of writing. You do a lot of sourcing of visuals again to define the space that the rest of the team works within. Um, so yeah, there's also a lot of just like you need to be able to give constructive feedback in a clear and concise way so that people can understand and can go off of that quickly. You also need to be able to be a mentor to a certain degree, again, to help your team grow. Um, I've yeah, I've been on teams where the creative direction hasn't been the greatest. And when the feedback is just like, yeah, no, that's not it. You're kind of like,
That's helpful.
okay,
Thanks.
I don't know what to do. Um, I got a bit of feedback on one project that will remain unnamed. But I literally got a task that said, you need to make red better. And I spent like a solid, like probably day or two be like, what does that mean? Like, what is? I don't understand.
Right.
It meant make it orange. That's what it ended up
Oh,
being.
Oh,
It was, like
well,
there was a lot of like iterate of like, is it this? Is it this? In the end, it was like, oh, you wanted orange. That's what you were. And this person spoke perfect English, like they were a native speaker, but the direction was terrible.
oh,
So yeah, I
well.
figured out make red better, just make it orange. Like, fine.
Wonderful. At
Yeah.
least if there's anything you learned what not to do for your own stuff.
And that's, I mean, again, being a creative director, like, it's why you want someone who's generally gone through a lot of processes. So they know the pitfalls. They know, okay, don't tell somebody to make a primary color better. Like, that is not helpful.
Right.
This is the specific thing you want to say. Um, that's why, yeah, the creative director, you generally want someone who's gone through that process and can help, rather than just have you spin your wheels on color theory for days. So yeah.
I mean, because you're all working for the same goal, so I think it's so counterproductive to even just be vague or not constructive. Because, like, okay, do you not want me to make our game better? Like, what's not clicking here? But yeah, Spin. I know you wanted to ask some questions as well. So
I have like a billion questions I could ask, but I'll try to keep it to like a couple. Uh, all right, specifically about A Long Journey to an Uncertain End. I feel like one of the things that really like caught my attention about this game is I feel like there's such a lack of queer genre fiction, like in all kinds of
mm,
media. And when there is like a queer sci-fi story, I feel like a lot of it's done from like a very like outside perspective, like a cishet perspective, like looking at queer people. Like there's a lot of like, oh, it's the future and people are queer. Wow, that's weird. you know? So like I just kind of wanted to get like your thoughts on like what inspired specifically Let's Make a Queer Sci-Fi game. I just thought that would be cool.
No, totally. And I mean, you're spot on. Like, seeing, oftentimes, like, there are a bit of tropes in sci-fi of like, you're in the future now. Having people do certain things, or having like, oh, you're in the future, like, everybody's queer. Woo! How crazy and exotic is that?
Right?
right.
It almost feels like you're kind of walking through a zoo a bit,
Mm,
rather than these are real people.
Right.
So, in one of it, at least the initial goal. So, I mean, I'm part of the queer family. Most of the um, we actually have quite a few developers on the team that are also part of the queer family. Um, you know, all along the alphabet, for the queer family, with non-binary, gay, lesbian, bi, all of that. Um, so just inherently, like, our dev team is already set up to have that queer perspective. In terms of Crispy Creative as a studio, one of our goals is inclusivity. So creating a sci-fi game that, I like to say, has a lot of queer dog whistles. That inclusivity doesn't necessarily mean, people not in the queer community can't experience it.
Mm.
Um, we still want that accessibility, uh, but to give a bit of that perspective of like, hey, here's what a sci-fi game can look like from a queer perspective.
yeah.
Excuse me. So, taking within our fiction of our universe, and a lot of things were inspired by the author Becky Chambers, who's this amazing sci-fi author, who created this Wayfarer series. Um, she's part of the queer family as well. Um, so she's great. But within our sci-fi universe, it's like, okay, what does the universe look like where, homophobia is gone, transphobia is gone, uh, racism, misogyny, all of that's gone. What does that universe look like? And then what do people pick then to essentially judge others about? So within our universe, all of humanity were on spaceships. They fled Earth, colonized all the other planets. The idea being that everybody on a spaceship for centuries. Everyone sort of mixes together. So just by proximity, you are exposed to a wide variety of people, which is often the cure for a lot of bigotry,
Yeah.
just meeting and interacting and seeing people. So then in our universe, we're like, okay, just as a matter of course, the same way that you produce, oh, this is Mr., this is Mrs., people introduce their pronouns as an everyday thing.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, there's none of that. There's no sort of otherness in terms of humanity dealing with each other. Now there is otherness in terms of organic people and sentient AI, which the player is a sentient AI and has to deal with that sort of discrimination, um, which is a way we were hoping to, again, make accessible the queer experience to an audience that may not experience it quite often. Um, so again, I can talk for hours and hours and hours about it. But that was essentially like the start. Let's make it accessible. How can we show queer experiences to an audience that may not necessarily experience it, but also have a game we can show to queer fans of like, no, this is our attempt at showing what a sci-fi universe can look like from a queer perspective.
I love that. I love
Yeah,
that.
and you can actually tell what like that as you play the game that the team is diverse in that matter because everything is just normalized in the game. It's not like a and dot 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 they're queer like no like that's just a part of their identity and you can and that's we often talk about how we there's always that joke of like was there no gay intern in that project, was there no one queer person involved in that, and in projects like this you can really tell that the team is just organically diverse and so it translates organically into the product, which is really cool. I actually wanted to commend y'all on one thing, which is the content warnings,
Mm.
because the story is centered around the main character, which is customizable, which is you, ends up. The whole premise is that you're running away from an abusive ex. So what I found was really cool was that there was that warning in the Kickstarter and surely in everything related to the game. So yeah, because we always talk about how it's often not normalized because people often assume that like, oh, I don't want to spoil my game, I'm just gonna say it contains heavy themes, and then all of a sudden you're like, ooh, this is a really heavy theme and nobody nobody warned me of anything. So was that also a part of your decisions as far as being inclusive and also caring for, because you did mention caring for the mental wellness of the people playing the game. So is that one of the things that you take into consideration?
We do. As and again, as much as we can, we're definitely trying to. It does come to valuing people, valuing our players and their time. Um, you know, if a game, if the themes of abusive relationships will cause is too much of a trigger, will cause too much trauma from or too many memories from past trauma, this may not be the game to try out. In the same way, like I can't play the Hitman series because I literally have dreams about killing people, and that really, really bothers me,
Mm,
like on a really, really deep level. So I just like it's a great series. It's not for me. I just can't play
yeah.
it. Um, so that is something where we just to let people know, like, hey, this is something we're going to talk about. We don't go in, it doesn't get super graphic.
Yeah.
But it is something that we do want to acknowledge and talk about, because you don't know people's past experiences. You don't know what they might be going through. Uh, I mean, in the game, one of the topics that we talk about, you go on a lot of adventures with your crew. Like it's not all a big therapy session. But we do talk about trauma. We do talk about not only the trauma that the player goes through, but each of your crew members
Mm-hmm.
are dealing with their own sort of demons that they're running from. Um, that was a goal of the game to help the player not only recognize trauma within themselves, but recognize trauma within other people. And then to hopefully give a little bit of strategies on how to deal with that. Um, Now, all of that, as heavy as um, that is meant to be uh, uh, a bit of the like, okay, here's the strategies, here's the themes that you're going to be learning while you're going on these sci-fi adventures, while you are, you know, experiencing these fun moments with your crew of I don't want to give too much away, but there's some really fun moments with the crew interacting with each other in the demo and also in the full game that we're planning.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, getting that balance of like it's entertainment. You want
Mm-hmm.
something fun. We want people to have this accessible adventures through this crazy sci-fi world we're creating, but still give a little bit of enrichment in there as well to help people come away from the game hopefully a better person at the end.
Yeah, that's awesome. So we're running out on time. So do you have any closing thoughts or any closing, I guess, statements that you may want to talk about for the game before we go? Because I want to make sure that we get to that 100% on the Kickstarter. We're getting close. So if there's any talking points
Uh,
that we happen to not have touched upon, feel free to mention something that you're passionate about.
oh, for sure. Well, I mean, I want to just thank y'all for having me on here.
Of
I
course.
always enjoy talking about the game. Uh, if you are interested in a long journey to an uncertain end, our Kickstarter is still live. We have a few days left. We're over 90% of the way there. So please come and check us out. If the game looks like something that you'd like to see made, please look at backing us. We have some really, really amazing rewards. There's actually a little plushie, something that we didn't talk about. There's a holographic corgi that is your helper
Yeah.
throughout the game. Um, and they use neo pronouns. So we actually have a little plushie of corgi that you can get at a reward tier.
So
Also,
cute.
if it's really cute. It's also like potentially based off of somebody in the room with me right now. But
Ooh.
uh but yeah, so there's a lot of heart in the game. But we have reward tiers where if you want your name in the game, if you want to help us design a character, if you want to be a character, all these are available on our Kickstarter. Check it out. Also join our Discord if you want to talk more about it. We have a sci-fi book club channel in there as well, where we just talk about what are some really, really cool queer sci-fi books. Um, so yeah, check it out.
Awesome.
A Long Journey to an Uncertain End. You can also go to longjourneygame.com is our website. So
Yes,
yeah.
please go support it. If you do want to check out gameplay of it, if you happen to not have time to download the demo, I did actually do a playthrough of the demo. Just don't look at the fact that I may have died at a point and just skip through that and just but it's fine. I had a blast playing it, and we usually talk about the games that we're playing, so it's awesome that we actually got to have someone that works on a game that one of us is playing. So I absolutely loved the demo. Cannot wait. I totally backed it. And yeah, they have like soundtracks, they have art book, like all of that fun stuff that I know y'all nerds love. So
I love an art book.
I love an art book too. Like yeah, it's so
I will say our art book is actually like part art book, part crew journal. So
yeah.
we're including a lot more world building in there as well. Um, I'm
So
really
good.
excited to make it. That was
Yeah.
like just to make that book. The game is going to be cool, but the book I'm really excited about making.
Yeah. Absolutely, absolutely. So yeah, I've been Project Ruby. You can find me at Project Ruby at all the platforms. The Project Ruby on TikTok. I stream all sorts of games Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. And yeah, that's it for me. What about you, Koga? Where can people find you? All of that fun stuff.
You can find me here at Twitch and also on Twitter at Koga_Jangles. I'll be continuing Yakuza 3 Remastered this week. I actually got out of Chapter 6. I'm on 9 now, so
Yes.
we're
Oh my
making
God.
progress. Okay?
Progress. Those side quests will get you.
Yeah. So that's what I'll probably be continuing to play this week. I still have a bit of time that I have to put into that.
Awesome. Spin.
I am Spinblend on most of the platforms. Twitch, Twitter, TikTok. You can find me on there. I play mostly Nintendo games, occasionally some Final Fantasy 13 I've been working through. And I also make soap, and I have a soap shop. You can follow my soap shop on Etsy and Instagram at Spin Soap Cafe. New spring soaps coming next week.
And by next week, like a few days.
Yeah, Thursday.
Just in a few days from the time it's probably live for some of you. Who knows? By the time you're listening to this. Yes, follow everybody. Once again, please go follow Crispy Creative as well on their socials. Go back to that Kickstarter. The link is in the chat if you're watching on Twitch. If you're listening on any podcast platform, it's in the description over there. So yeah, once again, thank you so much for joining us, Kylan. Thank you for being our first guest.
So honored.
Yes, and okay, shout out to Charlene, by the way, for making this happen. Amazing. She totally was like, okay, so do you want to play? We could play the game. We could have an interview. And I was like, yes. So yeah, I was thinking when the Kickstarter goal is reached, maybe we could bring more devs from the team, and we could have a little celebration follow up. That could be.
I'd love that.
That could be fun.
Oh, I'd
That'd be
love
really
that.
fun.
Yeah. Okay, that will be fun. Let's say that. Let's manifest that when the goal is reached.
Kickstarter, 100%
Yes.
summoning circle.
Absolutely.
Here we go.
All right, everyone. We're gonna let you go because I know you have things to do. We have things to do. So we're gonna see you next week with another episode of Just Gaming Tingz Podcast. Until then, stay safe, stay wonderful, and have a good week.